Post from China. It's the brand new Quick Pro GR1 gravel bike, and they say it's a flagship 3-in-1 frame, versatile aerodynamic comfortable geometry, and comfort geometry and aerodynamic down tube suits both beginner and pro cyclists. So a frame that does everything for riders on every level, a bold claim. Interesting detail, it says hand built in China on the box. Not long ago China only used to be associated with cheap mass production, but today they are using this as a mark of quality. We will find out if a bike that's hand built in China can compete with the Western bikes that are also all hand built in China. In this video I'll be taking a closer look at this frame, its one big geometry flaw and all the contents of this box. At the end I'll explain in detail how I figured out the correct frame and cockpit size for me. I've added chapters to the video description so you can jump right to the relevant section if you want to. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see me build this into a bike, which will happen as soon as I find the time. But first, a short word on how to get one of these. I tried it directly via Quick, but they never answered me, so I ordered from Podium and they had a little trouble shipping it. So it took roughly 5 weeks from ordering to my door. But at least at Podium you can talk to someone and they are really quick to answer. The current price is $2,000 for the frame and $200 for the integrated Aero cockpit, so I ended up paying just under 2,000 euros for this whole box. This is about 2 or 3 times the price of the cheapest Chinese frames from Tantan, Airwolf or VeloBuild and so on, and puts it on level with the Chinese premium brands like Winspace or Tavelo for example. But for 2,500 euros we could already get a Scott Addict gravel frame set for example. So we are very close to Western prices here, and the question arises, do we even save money with a frame set like this? And the answer is not so easy anymore. This build will end up at over 5,000 euros, and at that price I could order a bike with the same group set from a lot of brands. But with building the bike yourself you can choose cockpit size, crank length and so on right from the start and end up with a bike that exactly meets your requirements. And in this case you will end up with a really cool looking bike, so let's open the box finally. I was fully prepared to just find the frame and some bubble wrap, but instead I got this. This is some premium packaging, really neat. And I even got 2 Podium bottles as an apology for the delayed shipping. So let me put in the seat post so that we can put the frame in a bike stand. I've already put in the seat post clamp. Then next we have the seal that goes on here. And there is some grip coating on the seat post, but I'll still put on some carbon assembly paste just to be sure. And the seat post slides in with absolutely no problem. And I've already got the first warning, the seat post isn't very long. I've inserted it to the minimum insertion line, and if I measure from the center of the bottom bracket to the saddle clamp, it's only 75 centimeters. So keep that in mind, but we'll get to sizing later in the video. In the meantime I have weighed all the components and I put the real weights on the screen now. And now it's time for the big reveal. Ta-da! What a cool looking bike. The color is called Marble Gloss Grey and I'm so glad I chose that, because apart from that marble grey here in the front, it's all clear coat and we can see the carbon fiber beneath. And it's not just any carbon fiber, they've used a spread toe weave as a surface ply. And that weave is not used as much for its structural properties, but because it looks really cool and it gives a super smooth finish. And that is what we have here. I mean, look at it. I think it's one of the coolest frames I've ever seen. Quick claims that this is a true monocoque design, which is probably the most advanced form of frame building right now, meaning that the whole frame was made in one piece as opposed to a semi-monocoque design where the rear triangle is made separately and then joined in later. And I have no reason to doubt them, because we can see everything and there's no joint, no filler, no excess resin, just beautiful carbon fiber. So this really was made in one piece and I think that's quite fascinating. If you look really closely, you can see fine lines on most of the tubes. They almost look like seams, but the weave beneath them just continues. And I'm pretty sure I know what happened here. Those are the locations where 2 parts of the steel mold met during manufacturing. Because when 2 parts of the mold meet, there will always be the tiniest gap. And this gap imprints on the frame, and this is where the excess resin is squeezed out. You could think of this as a cosmetic flaw, but I think it's just really cool to get these insights into manufacturing. And all the lines on this frame give you an impression of the complexity of the mold where this frame came out. And from what I can see and feel, the inside is as smooth as you would expect from an EPS molded frame. The frame incorporates some classic Aero features. We have the deep head tube that's even a little bit pointed. We have the huge down tube with a cutout, so this could work really well with some of the newer Aero bottles if you want to go all out on aerodynamics. And we have dropped seat stays, which reduces the frontal area a little bit. On the seat stays themselves, they've decided against an Aero shape and made them oval, and I think that's to give them lots of lateral stiffness while still making them a little bit compliant under compression. Both seat post and seat tube have quite deep D sections, which should make them a lot stiffer than, for example, a round section. And to compensate for that, they've put this cutout here in the seat post to allow it to flex a little bit more. The seat tube also has a cutout, which is obviously for giving the tire more clearance, but I also think this will affect comfort a little bit, because under compression, the whole seat post, seat tube assembly should flex like this. And by giving the seat tube a very thin profile in this section, it should gain some flexibility in this plane. But please take all of this with a grain of salt. I'm just making assumptions here based on the shape. I haven't ridden the bike yet and I don't know the layer beneath that finish, but for me it looks like someone has put some thought into designing that frame. But enough with the praise, there's one big issue which almost made me not buy the bike, and that's the seat post, respectively the geometry resulting from that. Because your seating position has by far the largest impact on your overall aerodynamics. And if you want to go as fast as Remco, you have to sit with a level upper body and an open hip angle so that you can still produce a lot of power. And for that, you have to sit way forward. But with a seat post offset of maybe 25 millimeters and a slack seat tube angle of 73 something degrees, you're sitting way above the rear wheel. And as a result of that, your hip angle closes, and to compensate for that, you have to sit more upright, and that ruins your aerodynamics. So it's nice that they engineered all these Aero shapes into the frame, but what are like 3 or 4 watts saving worth if you're losing 20 watts on your seating position? So please quick, if you're seeing this, make another seat post option. This bike deserves it. I've also asked Pandapodium if I could just use the zero offset seat post from QuickPro's AR1, but they told me that it has a slightly different shape and won't fit the frame. Too bad. Another design choice that could be a deal breaker for a lot of people is the tire clearance. This bike is specified with a max width of 45 mm, and here I have a 2.4 Thundero in 44 mm that blows up to 46.5 mm on these ultra wide rims. More on them in the build video. And unfortunately, this is as big as I would dare to go with this frame. To demonstrate the clearance, I have a 5 mm hex key here, and the key just barely fits through the gap at the chainstay. And it's the same with the seat stays. Yeah, it needs a little bit of force to fit through here. It's only a little bit better with the fork. Here I can fit a 6 mm hex key around the tire. I was prepared for this. I didn't plan on fitting any tires larger than these, but this goes completely against the trend in the gravel industry, where people like to fit really large mountain bike tires that are 50 mm plus on their bikes. What I also find a little bit weird is this huge gap here, but that's just an optical flaw. At least you won't have any issues fitting a front derailleur here. Let's go over some of the smaller things. We have cable guides for shift and brake cables. This one here is the hole for the Di2 cable, and I believe this one here is for mechanical front shifting. I'm not sure that's a thing anymore in 2026 on a gravel bike, but the option is there if you want to. I will go with SRAM 1x, so we don't need any of that. I hope I don't regret that later, but the frame is so smooth inside, we won't need a guide for the brake cable. Speaking of SRAM 1x, we have a universal derailleur hanger in the back, so full compatibility with the new 13-speed group sets. And you can barely see it, but there already is some kind of chainstay protection on here. It's not very beefy, so I think I'll put something on top of that, but it's still nice to have. The brake mounts, both on the frame and on the fork, are machined and completely free of paint, though it appears that the mounts on the fork are not exactly in the same plane. There's a slight wobble here. I'm not too concerned about this. We will see if this results in rubbing brakes in the next video. The bottom bracket is T47, so a threaded standard. I've personally never had an issue with press fit, but T47 offers the advantage of larger bearings when paired with a 30mm dub spindle, so that's fine for me. Quick shows a 68mm width, so you need a bottom bracket where the bearings are outside of the shell. I don't know why they didn't go with 85.5mm. From my understanding, it would have offered a little bit more tire clearance and maybe a little more bottom bracket stiffness, but I'm not a frame designer. The bottom bracket area on the frame is perfectly executed. The shell is masked out from paint, so the bottom bracket will have perfect contact all around and we won't crush the clear coat when screwing it in. The threads are so good, the bottom bracket goes in even without grease with absolutely no problem. And when screwed all the way in, it comes out dead center on the other side. So I don't think this bottom bracket will give us any trouble. The headset also comes with the frame, and the surface where the bearings go in looks really neat. No overspray, no voids, so let's see how they fit. I love that all the bags are labeled only in Chinese, but on these two they have included a handwritten translation for people like me. So the top one goes in very easy, no force applied, no play. And the bottom one needs a tiny bit of pressure, but yeah, pops in right in place. Perfect. There are still some more things in the box. Here we have the fully integrated Aero handlebar from Canwin, Quick's own accessory brand. And this is the Zephyr SSL, so the road handlebar. You can also get this frame with a gravel handlebar that has a little bit more flair, but I won't use this for any brutal descending on loose gravel, so I'm happy with the narrow road position. There's not much to say about it. It has a beautiful finish and a standard compression plug top cap design, and that's really cool too. With the bars you get more spacers than you will ever need and a really sturdy computer mount. You could definitely mount a heavy light or camera here. I don't think this will ever break. Then we have a clamp for the Di2 battery and a collection of rubber plugs. Then there's this little booklet which is completely in Chinese, so I have no idea what it's saying. And because all the labels are in Chinese too, I have no idea what this part does. Google Lens doesn't help me either, so if you know, please leave a comment. I think it looks a little bit like a cable entry, but there's no hole big enough on this frame where this could fit in. So I have absolutely no idea. And finally, we have a little cover that you could use instead of the front derailleur. I think that's a really cool detail and I'm going to mount this right away. How cool is that? So if you think this could be a frame for you, you first have to find out the perfect frame size. Or find out if the perfect frame size for you even exists. Ideally, you already have a bike that fits you perfectly. In my case, that's my road bike and I want to copy this position onto this bike. If you don't have that, you should at least know what you want to improve on your current position. And if you don't even know that, you can go to a shop with a fit bike, try different positions, and they will give you a sheet with all the dimensions you need. If you have all these informations, it's time to go to a website like Geometry Geeks and search for the bikes in question. I would start with looking at the reach and stack dimension. Reach is the horizontal distance from the bottom bracket to the head tube, and stack is the vertical distance from the bottom bracket to the head tube. Now, these two dimensions should already give you a rough idea on the size of the frame. In my case, even size extra large would still be a little bit shorter than my current road bike, but at the same time it would be 28mm higher. And you cannot compensate for too much stack if you want to use one of the integrated cockpits. So I have to go down one size to large, and now the bike is even shorter and the stack is still 9mm higher than on my road bike. But that's not a big problem because I'm planning to run very short cranks on this bike, and with shorter cranks I can move up the saddle a little bit, and this will result in the same saddle to bar drop as on my road bikes. So in regards to stack, I'm now set. So now I have a frame that's 13mm shorter than my road frame, and I have to compensate for that with a longer cockpit. If you're ordering the handlebars, you can choose from different stem length, but stem length isn't everything. You have also take the handlebar reach into account and the hood reach. For example, I'm upgrading from SRAM D hoods to SRAM E hoods, and the E hoods are a little bit longer. So I suggest you make yourself a little spreadsheet and you add frame reach, stem length, handlebar reach and hood reach. And then you compare that to your existing bike and it should come out at roughly the same number. And now it gets really interesting. Just because reach and stack numbers are now matching still doesn't mean that the bike will fit you, because it could be that you're not able to get the saddle in the desired position. I've talked about this earlier in this video. If the seat post is just too short, you cannot ride the bike. But same goes for the setback. If you can't get the saddle far enough forward, then you cannot use the reach from your reference bike, because it will screw up the distance from your saddle to your handlebars. Another issue could be toe overlap. I, for example, had to go down one size to reach an acceptable stack height. But now my bike is quite short and I'm running at risk of hitting the front tire with my shoe. There isn't really a measurement that tells you exactly if you're clear of toe overlap or not. But you could use the wheelbase or the front center as a first indicator. Or if you have the means to do so, you could just draw the whole bike in CAD and measure the toe overlap like I did. So there are a lot of factors to consider, but if you put in the work, you will end up with a bike that is custom tailored just for you. Conclusion: is this a good bike? Honestly, I have mixed feelings. On the one side, you receive this premium package, it does everything right in the quality department, it looks super nice, you get all the accessories, but then on the other hand, you have these weird design decisions, and I think the main problem is this bike doesn't know what it wants to be. It has all these aero features, but is too short and has too much setback for a really aggressive aero position. It wants to be a gravel bike, but it doesn't fit the latest trends in gravel tires. So that puts it in this weird in-between ground, and I don't think that's the right place for an expensive custom frame set. Because people who are buying expensive frame sets are probably enthusiasts and already have a basement full of other bikes. They want a bike that excels in its discipline, and this bike certainly does not. So what's left, if I look past these shortcomings, is a unique bike that probably no one else in my country has, that will be an eye-catcher on coffee rides and that will motivate me to ride by just looking so cool. And I think that's a good deal for me. So I can't wait to build this up, and if you don't want to miss out on that, subscribe to this channel. See you in the next one.